Okay, it is 9 o'clock straight up Central Standard Time, and I'm Richard Wright. I apologize for the delay, but I didn't record it, but someone was supposed to be picking up my car from my driveway 2 hours ago, and they finally arrived right around quarter to 9. So I got it all squared away. So I'm going to go ahead and start week 5. I had one student to show up. Uh, uh, she hadn't made it back yet, but at any rate, I understand why not. So I'm going to go ahead and get started sharing the information. Okay. And okay. I do want to say one thing that's really a good thing, and that is that this the week 3 assignments that I graded, most of you did pretty well. Most of you did extremely well. That's the highest number of students I had to complete assignments. So keep on following the rubric, making sure that you pay attention to what I said. And if you did get a lower grade this time, it's because you didn't follow the rubric again. So that's critical with all of your written assignments. So let's see the messages again. I provided week 4's information. I also provided you the PowerPoints for week 5. You should have that as well in your system. So now let's take a look at the grade book. Okay. You're back. Okay. Sorry for that delay, Mackenzie. I appreciate you coming back. I finally got the guy here at quarter to, so we're all good to go here. So, all right. Um, yeah, it worked out. Yeah, I have a feeling that it's my battery because I had just gotten the car not long ago, but it's under warranty and everything, so I wasn't worried about it. It's just, anyway, one of those inconveniences. So anyway, we are in module 5, and I was saying earlier that you guys did real well with the assignment for module 3. Exceptionally well, most of you guys. Following the rubric very carefully, which is what I've been kind of, as they say, preaching to every one of you guys, to make sure that you follow that and then read my comments in the grade book. Of course, if you got 100, and see, let me tell you something. This is what I told one student. They said, well, you didn't give me any feedback. I said, yes, I do. I says, in the section where you get the points for that section, the feedback is the rubric itself. It tells you if you didn't do certain things to get those points. But I also add my own little comments to it as well. So it's very, 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 very important. People don't realize that you'll get half the points. Well, we go over the rubric again. I'll show you what I'm talking about, and you'll see. But anyway, people did pretty well with that. So this week we got the discussion post, property law, eminent domain business report, and then live classroom, which is what we're doing right now. And then you'll note that the discussion post, the initial post is due on tomorrow, which is the 7th, and the reply post is due Saturday, September the 11th, an infamous day in history that some of you too young to know about, but I remember it extremely well. And so your discussion post reply is due on Saturday. Then, of course, your 2 written assignments are due that Sunday, the next day. So let's go over the discussion. And so here we go. Remember, it is post first. You know that by now. And it's important that you do so. So it talks about in the instructions about the different kinds of property: personal property, real property, intellectual property. That's the topic of this week. All have unique legal requirements. And what for this activity, select one of these areas to research. Find a recent example within the last 5 years that illustrates the impact of the laws on either consumers or businesses. For example, you may wish to discuss current litigation arising from a homeowner's real estate transaction. Alternatively, you may wish to focus on a story involving corporate intellectual property dispute. Usually that involves disputes with patents, copyrights, and things of that nature. I used to do a lot of that, not the patents, but more the copyrights when I was an attorney representing entertainers. So for your initial post, for your story, news article, or whatever, how the materials are relevant to either of these 3 areas of laws. And then in your reply post, respond to at least one classmate's post with your thoughts regarding the information. Okay, so it's pretty straightforward. And a place you can find some cases or cases is Fastcase. That's a database. And then there's Discovery for articles and ebooks. And then also, if you have a question with any of these, citing, schedule an appointment with the business librarian, who can help you there. But you should be pretty good to go in terms of that. All right. So your written assignment is graded with a rubric, and here is the assignment. So you use this scenario up here, and then you're going to locate an example of eminent domain. We're going to talk about that in just a few minutes. Prepare a 2 to 3 page business report that responds to the following topics. Now, because it says business reports, someone will inevitably ask me, do we do that in narrative and APA? And the answer to both of those questions is yes. So a minimum of 2 or 3 pages. Now, if you go beyond that, that's okay. I had one student ask me if I'll go beyond that. I applaud that, but that's fine. But make sure you satisfy that minimum. Double space, please. I say this, some students single. No, double space with citations in the body and reference page at the end with a cover page. All right. So provide a summary of what happened. Regarding your example, you're going to then communicate, do you think the action of taking the property is fair? Why or why not? Again, we'll talk about eminent domain in just a few. In general, should the government be able to take property through the process of eminent domain? Why or why not? Remember, it says APA. There it is, right there in front of you, in-text citations and references. So that's a reminder of that. All right. Very important. All right. So now I'm going to come to show you the rubric in just a minute. I'm going to show you the full rubric, though. Well, I'll let you see the one that is that you'll see in your grade book. And here it is over here. And you can see under each section, eminent domain example. So you're going to give an example. And if you give a thorough and detailed summary of the example, you can get 10 points. And if you get down here, limited summary of eminent domain is going to be 5 points. Now, here's the deal. In order to give a thorough, detailed summary, you also have to cite your source of the information, because in terms of giving a thorough and detailed summary of the eminent domain example, citations are necessary to support your statement of what you determine by describing thorough and detailed summary of the eminent domain example. It's as simple as that. All right, so you'll get your points there for that. All right, so now the next section, fairness. You're going to comment about fairness, thorough and detailed explanation of fairness. So you can get between 17 and 9 points. Once again, it's half the points. So it's all about making sure you have citations. Okay. And then the other one, the next one, let's close that up, is, okay, we did that one. Close that one up. I gotta move my, here we go. So then you come over here and you get to the third section. Same thing here. Okay. You can see the difference in points. Citations help make it better, a lot better. And then your formatting and formalism is no grammar or spelling errors, and you've included APA. So if you take care of that up here, it'll automatically put you up here. If you have spelling errors, APA format was not used for citations and references, or no references included, you're going to get this number of points. Okay, so it's kind of self-fulfilling. Now, let me show you something. All right, and then the last thing is your live classroom lecture. All right, so I want to get out of student preview, and I want to go back, and I want to show you what I'm talking about. Here is the rubric with the full columns coming up in just a second. Let me move this over. So you see what I'm talking about with those same topics. So you want mastery all the way down. You could be proficient, but you don't give as much information. And competence, you give hardly any. And then here, you're just very limited in terms of it. So you can see all the way around. If you don't have APA, you're going to end up over here. But this is what I mean when I say, please heed what I said. The comments that actually tell you what you need to do with the assignment in the rubric is right here. It's right here. Right here. It's right here. So I comment about whether or not you did that. A lot of times I'll say, oh, if your paper was less than 2 pages, I'm going to say you couldn't have gone and given me thorough and detailed summary of eminent domain. You need more points. And I'm kind of nice the way I do it is that I will reduce your points by 3, but I could actually reduce it by a whole lot more than that. But then I get you down here, if you have no citations, where you're all the way over here as opposed to over here. Got it? Okay. So those who look at this recording, if you would just pay attention to the details in here, if you do this, you're going to get no comments. But then I'm going to check the box over here, and you're going to get all your points. I don't have to tell you, you know. I used to say good job, but no, that automatically is a good job. I'm letting you know that you got the point. You got it. All right. Very important. All right. So that's the assignments for the week. Let's go back. Let's get out of that. Now let's go and let's look at the calendar. All right, guys, here we go. This is week number 5. 5, 5, 5. What that means is this. We started it today with your live lecture. And once again, if you click down here, it tells you the link to the lecture. Okay. And if you come down further, you see the initial post due tomorrow. And then your reply post due the 11th. I had a student to ask me, since we have our lecture on Monday, why is the initial post due on Tuesday? I said, well, there are students who have lectures on after the discussion posts are due, because you have available to you the module as early as the beginning of the course, and you can look at it and see what you have to do. So the point of the matter is that you have this time here. That's why I tell students, I said, after you do your initial post and you listen to the live lecture and you've gotten your phrase, you have 1, 2, 3 days to start on your assignment, because you got a discussion post that's a reply to what you wrote already on by that date. It should be in by that date. You don't have to wait until that date. That's the date it's due. And then, of course, your written assignments are due that Sunday, 11:59 p.m. Central Standard Time. And then, starting next Monday, course ends 4 days later, the 17th. Not the 18th, not the 19th, or the 20th. Okay? So it's very important. And I'm going to talk about that until next week. But I'm showing you again, one more last time, how that operates. Let's get to our content here. Okay, once again, this is where you can find the link one more time for now to get to this. And then I change this over to the recording that I do after that. Okay. So we're going to talk about these 3 things. All right. So let's talk about personal property. When we get to the real property, we will talk about eminent domain. So I remember when I was in law school, and my first course I took was real property, and that was about real estate. But we had another course that was dealing specifically with personal property. And we were told from the very beginning that it is either intangible or tangible. And what is an intangible example is like a copyright. A tangible piece of property would be like some item that you can see. Like this thing here is a phone. That's personal property. Okay. By the way, we always remind people that property is really subdivided into 2 sections, personal and real property. But intangible, is divided into tangible. Real property. I'm sorry, one more time. Personal property is intangible or tangible, or so could real property too, because it's described by a deed or a document. So look what it says, and this is how you get it. Personal property covers movable property, interest less than complete ownership in land, or rights to money. Typical examples would be from a small pen to a purchase of a car. That's personal property. Okay, and then I showed you the phone. Now, personal property can be anywhere. Anything that fits within that. Um, as I said here, bags, cell phones, jackets are examples of personal property. The nature of personal property is that it is movable. It is movable. You'll discover that real property is not really movable. Now, somebody once said to me, well, isn't it possible to move a house? I said, yeah, but do you know the ownership is not based on the house that sits on it, that increases the value, but on real property, what is actually the property? What's it called? There you go. There you go. Perfect. The land that it sits on. That is why you're familiar with a survey, right? Your real estate property survey. And the purpose for that is to know the boundaries of your land and how far. If you have something done on your property, like we need a fence we're going to have put out because we want to put out there for our doggy, we got a survey to show them how to do that. But we also have that laid out too, because we have grass that abuts with the what we call the community part, because our house is on the corner, but the club lands entity, which actually takes care of the common areas, um, is abutted by a dividing line. And usually you'll see a landmark. And usually your landmark is determined pretty much by those, your phone module, the little module that sits in the corner that for your phone or for your internet, you know what I'm talking about? Hmm. And that pretty much lays it out. So talking about, there are a variety of ways to obtain personal property besides purchasing. You can get it as a gift. You can make a donation as well. Okay. And now, so we started talking about lost or abandoned property. And many state laws cover that, and is handled differently in various states. So let's talk about each one. Lost property. So if an article has been accidentally misplaced, the action is not deliberately, then it's lost property. And you know when you lose something, okay? Now, when you lose property, technically it's still your property, okay? On the other hand, what's the difference in lost and mislaid? Here it is. You knowingly placed and forgotten the article. So it's like you know where you put it, but you're not sure. Kind of like my wife with her glasses. I say, your glasses are over there. Or either have you ever seen the commercial about the person that's supposed to be an Einstein character, and they say, "How do you remember all this?" They says, "My glasses," and they point to the person's forehead, and the glasses are up here. Yeah, yeah. What'd you say about the kids? Yeah, yeah. I hear you. I hear you. Yeah, that is true. And then we get to the third one, which is abandoned. That means that it's been purposely distanced without intent of retrieval by the owner. So if you throw out something valuable in the garbage can, is it lost, mislaid, or abandoned? It is abandoned, exactly. And so anyone can get it. So and so there's litigation and lawsuits that take place dealing with those very interesting stuff. I remember when we studied in law school. I graduated 43 years ago, so that would have been 46 years ago. That's a long time. That's probably older than most of you guys in my class. Okay. All right. So now you got down the personal property part. So now let's talk about real property. Real property involves land, buildings attached to it, forests, and undeveloped land that one can possess. Um, is a trailer home real property or personal property? What do you think? Yeah, because it's movable. It's movable. Now, what you can do is you have lots. You know how people have lots where they park their trailer homes, and they dig in the ground and they sit them there, and then they have their little um, propane heaters and air conditioners, all that. You know what I'm talking about, Mackenzie? Yeah. Well, once they do that, the unit is still personal property, but what it sits on is the land it's attached to. So the key thing is this, is that when you're dealing with real property, by the way, um, I talked to you about land, real property in my legs, remember? And the L is for land contracts. So to be enforceable. Now, probably the personal properties too. If it if it's good over $500, then it's going to be. But I'm trying to, as they say, bring you full circle to say to you, oh yeah, light bulb should be coming on here. So if it's real property, then in order to be enforceable, it must be in writing. In writing. If I was writing a paper, that would be one of the first things I would say. I would, because look what it says here. Okay. The first line right off the bat. Under statute of frauds, the purchase of property is a contract that is required to be in writing. Purchasing property is the most common way to come into possession of it. And so the purchase of real property differ from state to state, but generally have the same thing in common. For example, a typical scenario with the purchase of a home includes a buyer, a seller, an agent, a broker on behalf of each party. The agents negotiate on behalf of the clients. At closing, this is where all the tons of paper are signed. Something really funny. When I did my real estate closing to buy the house I'm in November of 2019, I hired a lawyer. Now I knew how to do it, but I have a benefit from working at Rasmussen that I paid for that allows me to get an attorney, and they pay it. So I didn't want to do all the work. I knew what was involved because I represented people doing that. So yep. So excuse me. So it was cool because I told my attorney up front. I says, look, I says, this is gonna be a quick closing. I know you're gonna make sure the numbers are right, and then I also will see that too, because you got two lawyers here, okay? One's the buyer and one's the actual lawyer representing the buyer. And so, man, I just, sign, 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 without even thinking about it, because I knew he was looking at it. And then, I trusted him, because if he messed up, then he was going to end up in trouble. He knows that. I know. I've been in his shoes. Okay. So at closing, this is where all that stuff is signed. The title passes, and the deed is recorded to show that the newly acquired interest is there. And that's how real estate works. works. Okay. Now, another way of inheriting real property is through a will. Now, a will is a document. We already know what that's stating, the final disposition of real and personal property. And then states have various issues with taxes and so forth and so forth. You don't have to have a will, but if there's not a will, a person dies in what we call intestate. And what that means is that state law explains how property is divided. However, um, um, you want to make sure that your wishes are satisfied by putting it in writing. So, because this would happen if it's intestate, the last sentence, if there are no relatives remaining, the property, what we call escheats, which means it transfers, that's a legal term, to the state, and the state becomes owner of the property. So you want to have a will. You want to have that. All right. And there are certain rules regarding wills. I'm not going to get into those, but each state has various rules and so forth. Adverse possession. When I took the bar exam, and I'm going to give you another little acronym for this. Remember, I gave you my legs. And I'm giving you a generalization, which should apply across the board, but some states are different. And so in order to have adverse possession, and I'll use the example that we had, that you must cone for 20 years, some more than that, but 20. And here's what cone stands for: continuously in possession, open, that's the O, in is notorious. That sounds funny when you hear it, but I'll talk about that. And exclusive. That's how you do it. It's often called squatters' rights, where people stay on land and no one bothers them to get them off, and they stay there for 20 years. Now, again, each state has different terms, but in our state we had 20. So it says it's not a common way, but you should be aware of adverse possession, and that's how squatters' rights come about. The doctrine of adverse possession encourages people to actually use the land and not allow it to sit vacant. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And you know what? That's really funny you say that. I have discovered that the more the further west you go, the shorter the period. And north is also shorter than where we are. And if you go south, you're going to find it might be longer, except in Louisiana. I don't even want to talk about that one. Okay. Let's talk about the 49. I don't even know how Hawaii is. Okay. But the doctrine of adverse possession encourages people to use the land and not allow it to sit vacant. And in order for someone to claim your land, here's what they have to to be able to do that. So if someone can claim your land in adverse possession by, notice what I told you, the possessor must be in actual possession. Okay, must be open and notorious so that others can see it. The possession must be hostile. I don't mean you got to conduct protected. This goes against the owner's interest, because what it means is that the owner was negligent. Okay, let you do it. They didn't do anything to you. They didn't disturb you. The possession must be continuous for the statutory limit of time, which is what we said a few minutes ago. States vary. And the squatter cannot move on and off the land. So it's continuous. And the possession must be exclusively done by that squatter. So that's why a cone must be continuous, must be open, notorious, and exclusive. So there's a good one for you. So remember that one. Cone, continuous, open, notorious and exclusive for whatever the number of years based on the jurisdiction that you're in. And that's how I remember when I was taking the bar exam, I had a whole bunch of them things. And when my good friend, my legs, helped me with all my real property issues and with all my contract issues and so forth. All right. And it can be, as it says, if you look at this paragraph, it can be anywhere from 5 years in Nevada. Remember what I said? You go further west, it's less. To 25 in Maine. See what I'm talking about? How you go further east, it's longer period of time there, and that's something for you to know. All right. So you're good on real property. Okay, it's pretty straightforward. All you have to do is pretty much remember it must be in writing because the statute of frauds. You also must remember about adverse possession and how do you form adverse possession? You must cone. Professor Wright says you must cone. And then somebody writes cone in their paper. And I say, yeah, okay. Well, ice cream cone or what kind of cone? Pine cone? No, it stands for something. Continuous, open, notorious, and exclusive. Okay. The last one that we're going to do is intellectual property. Has nothing to do with your intelligence. Uh, I remember a person says, so that means that stupid people don't get intellectual property. I says, not, that's wrong way of interpreting it. It just boils down to what it says in this little bitty box here. Look, it says, intellectual property laws protect ideas, ideas, ideas. These ideas can range from a secret formula for a drink, like the secret sauce on Big Mac, which really is not really a secret. What do you think the secret sauce is on the Big Mac? Yeah, but what is it? I mean, what's the kind of dressing that you know of? You're right though, but yeah, it's not Western. It is oh God, help me. I know the name of it and I can't think of the name of it. Uh Thousand Island. Thank you. That's it. That's it. There we go. Thank you, Mackenzie. Yeah, it's that, and that's what Thousand Island is consist of in there. So, excuse me. They also used to talk about the tartar sauce having a secret. They had a different flavor to it, but you know, and here's the deal: when you know the recipe, those are the things, and you do know that if you vary your recipe a little bit in something, then it changes the makeup of the whole thing. You know, so anyway, uh, to how a widget, a widget. Do you know what a widget is? Not exactly. A widget is an imaginary product. Um, there was a movie that came out um, with Rodney Dangerfield years ago, Back to School. Did you ever see that movie where his son, you should check it out, where his son is in college and he's a wealthy guy and he goes back to school to be with his son and he has his professor who talks about widgets. And you'll hear Rodney talk about widgets, but they're imaginary uh, products. Yeah, it's funny. Rodney Dangerfield was hilarious. I used his famous phrase was, "I can't get no respect." You remember that? That was his big line. Yeah, he had an awesome restaurant I used to visit years ago in New York when he was alive. He was a cool guy. I liked him. I met him one time. Real cool. So anyway, intellectual property deals with protecting rights, patents, trade secrets, trademarks, copyrights. like, people using music jingles and songs, and there were suits. I used to work for this big law firm, and if you listen to my story, and I started in their mail room. And when I was in the mail room, one of their clients I met, his name was Ray Kroc, and Ray Kroc was the chairman and founder of the McDonald's Corporation. And we represented at that law firm, and I rose to be a lawyer. Excuse me, at that law firm. I learned a lot about McDonald's and how it operates from Mr. Kroc. But they eventually did a movie. Michael Keaton played him in this movie. But Mr. Kroc was about the size of Danny DeVito, maybe even shorter, if you could imagine that. But he was almost like Hervé Villachez size. Do you know who Hervé Villachez was? Do you know that name? Fantasy Island. He used to say, "The plane, the plane, the plane." You'd have to Google that, or either look at one of those old shows. Ricardo Montalban was on there with him. But anyway, uh, yeah, that's where it came from. So anyway, we represented McDonald's in attempts to uh, deal with their trademark rights and stuff like that. Probably one of the examples is, did you see Coming to America? Yes. Okay. Remember McDowell's? Okay. Remember McDowell's in the movie? I was just looking at the second one today, laughing about it again. And that was an example of what I'm talking about. And remember when Eddie Murphy and Arsenio first came up to him in that first movie, and he was looking at the manual from McDonald's, and he close up, he says, "You guys aren't from McDonald's, are you?" And so, but if you ever see the second movie, he talks about McDonald's had, I think is it the McFlurry? I think it's called the McFlurry. Is that what it's called? Yeah, he got something in that movie. It's called I can't think of it, but it's like the McFlurry. He said instead of our toppings being on the top, our toppings are on the bottom. But anyway, obvious things. So, in other words, protection, those trademarks. Even did you not know even the color of the golden arches was patented by Ray Kroc? The color, yeah, it was a special golden arches that were made. Because when they first started out, they didn't have those, but they were created. And you'd always see, if you look at the bottom of it, you'd see either R for registered trademark, or you see a C on something, that means it's copywritten and things of that nature. But anyway, trademarks, like for example, Coca-Cola, you would see it. Did you not know who kind of messed up on their trade name or trademark? Oh, do you know who messed up on their trademark or trade name? They kind of let it get away from them because of their negligence. Do you know? You know? I'll tell you who it was. Can you hear me? Because I'm going to tell you. It was Xerox. Xerox got real sloppy, and they allowed copies to be called Xerox copies, even if they were on a Minolta or another kind of copier. But um, it was protected, but it was watered down. It was watered down. A lot of times you hear trademark uh, or copyright infringements with songs and music. Michael Jackson songs, Prince had some issues. Um, what's his name? What's the guy that did? He did one of my favorite upbeat songs. Um, this guy did one of my favorite upbeat songs. What was his name? Where it's very upbeat and they're dancing. Oh, okay. You back now? Okay, I was saying that one of the companies that had problems with their copyright protection was Xerox because they allowed copies from Minolta or from any other machine, Sharp machines, to be called Xerox copies, and everybody would call them Xerox copies, and they they didn't do a good job of doing it. I was saying that there are lawsuits in the music industry where there's a certain amount of lyrics used. And what's the name of the song that the guy did? And I'm drawing a blank on his name. And they were dancing in the halls of the school. Um, uh, it what's the name of it? I have it on my computer. Um, and he got sued for no no. The guy says uh, gotta be da 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 da. What's his name? Oh shoot! As soon as I say his name, you'll know who I'm talking about. But anyway, uh, they did they did a nice video where they were doing a line dance, and they were dancing in the halls of the school, and they went to different. It goes boom 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 boom. What's the name of that song? Oh, you know it, and I know it. It's called what's the guy's name? And it was a very upbeat song. It was out a few years ago. Um, it starts out with, oh, okay. It started out with a few years ago. But anyway, there's a lot of songs. And anyway, patents last for so many years, and then they have to be renewed. Trade secrets that has to do with the items or the ingredients and things. Trademarks, we talked about that, like McDonald's, and copyrights, um, and uh, Uptown. The song, it's starting to pop back in my head. Uptown, Uptown something. Um, and the guy is pretty famous now. He's made a bunch of Uptown Funk. There you go. There you go. That's it. That's it. He got sued. Yeah. Okay, thank you. Oh, two good minds finally come together. Yeah, he got sued for some of that, saying that was similar. But he got sued for some other songs as well. But what's his name? What's the guy's name that did Uptown Funk? Um, uh, you know who I'm talking about. But he was the one that got Mark. What's it? What's it? Mark something was it? So anyway, copyrights. You also take your properties. Yeah, Mark Ronson. And so you take your intellectual property, and it goes into these four categories. It's one or the other, and that's it. So patents usually involve specialized attorneys called patent attorneys. Let me give you an example of how it could come back and bite you. Um, I had a client who was a dentist, and he came to my office years and years ago in the 80s. He was my dentist, and he had this idea for this disposable toothbrush where you could, you know, um, slide up, and then the toothpaste would go on the toothbrush. You're seeing them, you know what I'm talking about now, right? Yeah, yeah. Well, anyway, he came with the idea, and I told him, "Oh, this is cool." I says, "Let me hire a patent attorney to work with us, and let's protect this for you." So anyway, I told him how much it was going to cost. It was pretty expensive. He says, "No, I'm not going to do that right now. Let me think about it." So he didn't. I didn't see him for a little while, And so he then called me up. He says, "Hey, I found somebody who could do this for much less." And he sent his idea, a prototype, to them. Well, as it turned out, that company sold it to one of those companies like Carol Wright, which is the same last name as mine. Carol Wright is one of those magazines stuff that have whatnots and little gadgets and things like that, gadgets and things. You know what I'm talking about? You ever seen those? So you get the catalog. They'll mail them to you and stuff like that. But anyway, it was a company. Yep. So here's what happened. He comes to my office. This is about 2 months later, 3 months later, and he says, I want to show you something. So he brings this magazine and he lays it out. And he says, look at this. I looked at it, says, oh. I said, oh wow, you got your items taken care of and sold, and now you're gonna make money on it. He says, no, I used a company. And apparently they made money and sold it to somebody. And with a loophole, and I read his paperwork. I said, you gave away your rights, dude, to save a few bucks. Yep. And he could have been a billionaire off of that. It's just crazy. But that was a patent issue. It cost him $10,000. Yeah, I know that's right. And so it would have cost him 10,000 for the patent attorney, but he said that was too much. Well, I don't know. Now you can find those almost everywhere. You can go to hotels and you can find those. Sometimes they're in plastic, cellophane, and then you open them and you slide them, and then you use the toothbrush one time and disposable, throw it away. That was his idea, but he didn't patent it. Shame on him. Yeah, yeah, that's what I said. So I told him, don't get mad at me. So anyway, so that's patents. Trade secrets are things like, for example, your secret sauce and mixes. Uh, Trademarks are like McDonald's golden arches, that type of thing, and they're protected under the Lanham Act. And then copyrights themselves. Now with the digital stuff, you're dealing with video recordings and computer software, and you got uh, um, people who go to shows now. Have you ever been to the show and you're watching the movie and you see a row of people in front of you? They're near the front and they got their cell phones out. You know what I'm talking about? Yeah, they're taping it, and what they're doing is they're recording it with their phones, and then they send it to some place and they put it together and they make bootleg copies. And there's been some good ones. I've seen some good ones before. When I was in law enforcement, we confiscated a bunch of those types of things, and that's a federal offense. You can go to the penitentiary for that. Though I know people who they try to see the movie. Just like somebody recently approached me, I went to see Respect, which was the movie that Jennifer Hudson did about Aretha Franklin. And my wife and I went to see it a few weeks ago. Um, and we ran into somebody we know after that, and it says, "Hey, man, you seen Respect?" I said, "Yes, we did." I said, "We went to the show." "Oh, I could have saved you money. I got it right here for $5." I told him, "No, I don't do bootleg. I don't do that because the theory is what you're doing is you're taking away from the purchase of where people put their hard work." Yeah, he knows it. He knows I'm a lawyer. He knows I'm a lawyer. But I told him, I says, I'm not gonna. I wasn't in law enforcement anymore. If I was, his butt would have been in trouble. Okay. But I told him that's illegal, bud. I said, you can go to jail for that. That's some free legal advice for you. But people do People do it all the time and violate. And what it does is it takes away from the hard work and that people do. So, yeah. So anyway, that's it for me for tonight. I appreciate you hanging in there with me, Mackenzie, in week 5. Um, do you have any questions about anything? Okay. So anyway, here's a key phrase I want to give you. Any suggestions? That is a good one. But if I give that one, I got to tell you, got to use what the whole thing means. So I'm not going to use cone. But that is a good one. So I hope you wrote that down. Continuous, open, notorious, and exclusive. Yeah. Um, okay. Anything else? One more. Any more? Okay. I'm going to give you one that's real easy. That's close. Real property. Give me real property, and you get your points for week number 5. Okay, well, I hope you had a great Labor Day. My wife put some stuff on the grill, and so I ate that. And then I had some ribs. I went to this restaurant that's in exclusively in, I think it's St. Louis. I mean, not in St. Louis. It's in Missouri, and it might be somewhere else in the South. It's called Bandanas, like a bandana, and they make some great ribs. So we got some of those yesterday and brought those home, and then my wife put some more stuff on the grill, and I had that earlier today. So I hope yeah, it was really good. But I had to eat before 7:30 because I'm on my little thing that my little fast thing that I it's called intermittent fasting. You can you can see it kind of, you can see it right here, and it's telling me that when I can eat. You see that little circle thing there? It's saying I have 14 minutes and 30 seconds before I can eat anything or drink anything except water. So guess what happens? I turn on TV, uh, and they start advertising all kinds of food. So I turn off my TV. I try to go to sleep. All right, Mackenzie, thank you again. Enjoy your week. And again, next week is it. This is it, the final chapter. And then we will have 2 weeks off. Um, next term, I will be teaching a class. I won't have any of you guys unless you cross over into criminal justice. I will be teaching uh, introduction to corrections and also contemporary issues in criminal justice, which is my favorite area there. So see you next week. Continue to stay safe as well. Good night.